Hey guys, welcome to another video from Historic Militaria. Today we're going to be looking at a Mauser 1930 commercial broom handle that was made in the early 1930s, and we'll be looking at some of the interesting markings on it and the military use that this one definitely did see. Kind of an interesting gun. So we'll just start off by noting some of the features of the 1930 commercial. First thing you're going to notice are the wide serrated grips. Mauser stopped doing the really finely serrated grips right around serial number 720,000, 710,000, and they went to the wider ones, and that's sort of your first indicator of a 1930 commercial. You also have a large Mauser banner right there on the side, and just sort of almost a more decorative look to these guns. Also, this one is finished in the salt blue of the period. This would be what Mauser used from about serial number 710,000 on, and this is just a black blue, a very dark finish, whereas the earlier ones were rust blued, and it gives a black look to these guns. Your small parts are still going to be fire blued. You can see that's a fire blue versus the salt blue on these. And this one is in the 850,000 serial number range with your standard barrel and your step here in the chamber, which is indicative of a 1930 commercial. This one is pretty interesting because you've got your standard Crown U-proof, but then you also have a Waffenamt. Now, there is some indication that the German Luftwaffe picked up 8,500 or about 8,500 1930 commercials toward the end of Mauser production. Mauser had them basically sitting in the factory unsold, and at the time, pre-World War II, the Luftwaffe needed some weapons, and what do you know, we've got some broom handles here, buy them, no problem. Whether or not that contract actually existed is the subject of some debate. Mauser certainly did not keep records that survived the war, and if 8,500 guns were bought, you'd think you'd see maybe a few more with a Waffenamt like this. There's not a lot floating around. I do know that Mauser Schnellführers, or M712s, which were full auto and frequently used by the German military, did have Waffenamts on them. But to find a commercial production gun is a little bit unusual. And I don't have a lot of provenance on this gun particularly. I know that it came out of the Midwest a number of years ago, and that's all. And the other interesting thing, and this is typical of the later guns, you've got them marked Waffenfabrik Mauser, Obendorf, and I believe that's the river that is right by Obendorf. And then you've got your DRP UAP, which stands for Deutsch Reich Patent and Other Patents. So it's just kind of a patent protected thing, long way of saying that. Otherwise, this is a very standard 1930 commercial. As you can see, it's in pretty nice condition. It's got your typical scuffs from being in and out of a shoulder stock a fair amount. 1930 commercials really liked to scuff from going in and out of shoulder stocks. So if you've got a 1930 commercial in nice condition, don't pull it in and out of the shoulder stock a lot. And for the love of God, do not store it in the shoulder stock. It's just going to scratch up. But this is a very typical gun. You've got your sort of mysterious Mauser control and factory markings underneath here that really mean nothing other than internal factory stamps and proofs. And we'll take a better look at this, just so you can take a look at that Waffenamt. As you can see, that's applied near the time the gun was made. That's a pretty typical Waffenamt right underneath your crown U on the barrel flat, which is where these were applied. So it's just an interesting gun. Whether it was part of the so-called Luftwaffe contract, not really sure, but it is a definite gun that saw service with the German World War II military, and obviously not a lot of service. I'm sure it was supplanted by a Luger or a P-38 fairly quickly. As you can see, it's also got the 1,000-meter sight with your nice fire-blued bolt and your standard chamber markings. This one does have the 1930 commercial type safety. So they've gotten rid of the NS hammer, and they've also gotten rid of the serial number on all the parts. The only serial number on this gun is right here. So just something to keep in mind. Mauser dropped a lot of the serial numbered parts. So if you see 1930 commercial, you're really not going to have a lot of serial numbers on them. This one obviously just has the crown U on the bolt, blank bolt otherwise. And just to go over the 1930 commercial safety, obviously this is in safe. To fire the gun, you would pull that down, and if you notice, your hammer is resting on your firing pin right now. When you put that into safe, it rotates your hammer back just a little bit and freezes it in place where it's not going to hit your firing pin. So you drop that down. And the other thing you can do is actually, when your gun is on safe, you can still cock the hammer. So I guess theoretically you could carry this cocked and locked like this. The other interesting thing you can do is you can actually have your gun on safe and cocked and pull your trigger, and it drops your hammer and stops it right there from hitting the firing pin. And then obviously you would just rotate that down, and it actually sets your hammer on the firing pin and pulls back. So, an interesting gun. I'm not really sure what capacity this saw with the German government in World War II or the German military, but it is a German military gun. It has got the Waffenamt. That is a legitimate stamp. Really not open to debate about that. I have seen others of these that have Waffenamts on the barrel flats. Sometimes you'll see them here. Sometimes you'll see them on the other barrel flat. I also have seen a lot of fake guns that have large swastikas on the magazine or elsewhere. If you ever see a Waffenamt on the magazine or underneath here or on the sides, stay away from it. All the Waffenamts that are legitimate I've ever seen have been fairly small like this, so not exactly obtrusive, and just sort of there. So if you know anything about these, if you know about the Luftwaffe contract, if you have a Nazi stamped gun, I would love to hear about it. Drop a comment in the comments, and like and subscribe. I'd love to share the knowledge on broom handles especially. But we'll be looking at helmets, military ordnance, and other kinds of guns in the upcoming weeks and months. So as always, thank you for watching.